Welcome back to the GameSpot stage here at E3 2016. Joining myself and Justin Hayward is Aleks Grandal from DICE, here to talk some Battlefield 1. Alex, how is your show going?
It's going great. It's fun to finally get to see the game in the players' hands. You know, this is what it's all about, and trying to get some time into reading what they're writing about it and seeing what we can do. But what I'm walking through and looking at them playing, it looks like they're having fun. So that makes me excited.
We got to see a lot of people play it. Did you get to meet Snoop Dogg?
No, I didn't actually. I sat behind the stage trying to make that broadcast work. So I was actually helping out, trying to find the good gameplay moments so we could cut between. So I actually did. So that kind of describes what I do. My days are never the same. I go sometimes talk to you guys. Sometimes I act like I'm some sort of TV producer. Other days I'm So that's what a producer does, I guess, and just goes around and do random stuff.
helps keep everyone in line. So you guys announced the game a few weeks ago now. Had a fantastic reception. You're showing off more at E3. What do you think is, the key bit that you really wanted to shout about?
So this is we're bringing multiplayer to the show floor. That's what we're kind of showing. We're bringing a couple of new things to multiplayer that we haven't showed before. So first of all, we are showing the dynamic weather. Mm-hmm. So what that means is that as you are playing, the weather conditions are changing on you. And that forces you a little bit to adapt to the new conditions. If you're in clear daylight and sun is shining, clearly you can see people coming from miles. But if the rain comes in, or even it changes to a fog, you really need to kind of move a lot closer to see people, and that kind of changes the way that you play the game. It's a part of what we call the dynamic sandbox. It's like an element that we add on top of the additional Battlefield elements. And it's quite cool to see people react to it, and as you see the silhouettes in the fog, you're kind of like, ooh, has he seen me? Can I sneak around him? And stuff like that.
What's been incredibly interesting about the Battlefield 1 reveal is that you guys are going back in time. So at present, it's popular to be like a modern, even futuristic first-person shooter. Why did you guys decide to go back in time?
We didn't. That wasn't actually the decision. We started out with an idea that we wanted to do a little bit different. We wanted to make a new game that challenged ourselves and our players a little bit. So that was kind of the core of the idea. And there was a couple of people in the studio that have been wanting to make a Battlefield World War I game for quite some time. So they pitched this to us, and it just clicked. It just clicked because that matched exactly what I thought we needed to do. New gameplay experiences, challenge ourselves a little bit. We didn't, decide to go back in time. It was just like there was the right idea that happened to be at the right time when these two needs kind of met each other.
So, while thinking of new gameplay experiences, were pitch meetings like, well, what if we did a Battlefield kart racer? What if we did Battlefield fighting game?
Yeah, no, I don't think we go that crazy with our pitches. We know always that we want to make a Battlefield game in its core. So we most pitches. There might actually have been a couple of those.
Racing would work really well in Battlefield.
Yeah, actually, when you talk about it, there was actually talks about some sort of pinball game, Battlefield pinball game back in the days. I seem to have some vague memories of that now that you mention it. I have to figure out what happened with that because that sounds kind of
Find
awesome.
those notes. Find those
notes.
Yes,
at least like a mobile game, like Battlefield Pinball Mobile.
Yeah.
But no, what I find interesting is that everyone kind of assumed that like the weaponry wouldn't be as advanced as we're used to now, but that's a big misconception because back in World War I, we had all these incredible. You had tanks, you had rifles, you had automatic rifles, semi-automatic, all this kind of stuff. What was it like, sort of going back and using those kind of weapons compared to the really modern ones?
So what I find the most interesting about these weapons is that they are more unique in the way that they look and the way that they play. So we can pull weapons apart a little bit. So in many in modern games, it's like weapons are kind of feel and play very similarly. When an assault rifle feels like a carbine and it feels like an SMG. I mean, the overlap is quite big. So what I think is cool here is that you can really pull them apart and really create, this weapon works exactly like that. So it's quite short, fast fire. You have another one that is slightly different. So I think that's actually adds more variety to the game in total. And what I actually think is really cool is that you have probably never played with these weapons before. This is the first game that you're playing, so it's not another M16 that you probably shot a billion times. You actually have completely new weapons to play around with, and hopefully people feel that.
Was there a lot of pushback at the beginning when you guys were like, let's do World War I? And they're like, no, World War II. You have to do World War II or before. But what was the moment when they were like, this might work, this might be a good idea?
I think it was a kind of gradual change, but it was a couple of watershed moments that we've had. So we made multiplayer demo quite early, so we kind of proved that we could do multiplayer, and people were just like, yeah, good, this is good. That's also kind of what we are good at, producing multiplayer. And then we actually made a demo for our campaign, and we showed it to the company not a very long time ago, and that had a profound impact, I think, on the people who will watch this, and that basically felt like everyone was on board with that idea. They really kind of changed it. But I think all having something in a PowerPoint or whatever the type presentation doesn't really have an impact. It's always when you make a game and you actually show live software, that's when it's actually being felt. So yeah.
Do you guys go for more authenticity with those feelings, or is it trying to create something that feels unique and different? Like,
so we want to make a game that is fun first, obviously. That's always the case when we do this. But the cool thing is that all the stuff that you see here and in the trailer and that you'll be playing with in the game are inspired by the real world counterparts and events that have taken place. So it's authentic in that sense, but we do have to take some creative liberties every now and then to cater for the more and create it a little bit more fun experience.
I was going to say, I mean, back in World War One, there were always the stories of, the Battle of the Somme. They were saying that 1 in every 3 shells would explode. Are you going to factor in those kind of, like tanks breaking down in the middle of the battlefield? Are you going to have that kind of authenticity, or?
So yes, in certain elements of the game, there will be things that are representative of what you just described. But in multiplayer in general, we don't really want to create that randomness. I don't think people like too much randomness when it comes down to firing things.
Don't like equipment failure.
Yeah, exactly.
In the middle of a match.
That hasn't really been. We actually tested it in the past. It doesn't feel right. I mean,
that would suck.
Yeah. So, and I also think that what I would want the players to feel like. So when these weapons were actually created back in World War One, these were the kind of top of the line stuff. Those were the most well engineered stuff they had access to, and so when people actually started using that is modern to them, to the people who were using them. I think we're trying to capture a little bit of that as well in the game. So they should never feel rattly. They shouldn't feel like clunky and breaking down all the time. They should feel like they're modern in a sense.
Did you ever manage to be able to go out and shoot some of these guns themselves? I mean, how did you record the sound effects for the guns as well? Yeah,
so we have been looking all around the world to try to find these weapons, and they're not super common. People don't have them laying around, but we found some people in the US and even in Sweden where we do our work. And we sent our audio guys out and recorded a lot of it. And for those we couldn't record, many of these weapons, they are basically early versions of weapons used in World War II, which is much more common to find. So basically the gun nut guy, he'd basically go, oh, they only changed the bolt a little bit, so it should sound exactly the same. Oh, actually they only changed the frame over here, so it should be a good analogy to that. So I think that we found pretty much all the source material we needed and went out and recorded it. And it's actually, every time they go out, they put together these awesome videos for us in the team and show when they shoot all these weapons. And it's pretty crazy. It looks pretty wild.
And the blimps are just such a crazy addition to the game. Well, of course, that was part of the world back then, but was there any trepidation when you're like, blimp is a bad idea? Like,
no, that was it must have an airship. That was kind of like, yep, that is going on. That is going directly in. So we knew quite early we wanted to have these behemoths in the game because we felt like we can bring some really cool opportunities in there. So the airship is one, and it's fully player controlled. You can kind of pilot it all around the map and drop bombs and shoot various types of cannons and fight against the biplanes that are trying to take you down.
When it crashes, so like I've seen it crash in the trailers, and it always seems to crash on the city or the town. Can it crash someplace else?
Yes, absolutely. So I think that most people, reason that you're seeing it crash over the city is because that's
the coolest.
That's where most of the people were.
Yeah.
So if you're dropping bombs, you want to drop it on top of the people that was right there. But no, it can crash pretty much anywhere, depending on where you are, obviously. So it's completely dynamic and player-driven from that point of view, where it actually collapses.
In terms of the single-player campaign, there's different viewpoints that you can take. Which nations are going to be represented in those?
So in the campaign, you'll be playing along multiple different factions. The crew that you saw in the trailer that you saw, that is one of them. This is a British crew. I'm gonna reveal that to you because they are in a Mark V, which was
Did recognize those accents.
Yeah, and you did recognize those accents. Yes, so you'll be fighting alongside and experiencing alongside multiple different factions in this in our campaign, because we have several different stories. So those guys are one story. We have another one that you might have seen in the previous trailer, which is the woman riding the horse. She's another character that you also be playing as, which is a completely separate story. So again, there's multiple different characters you'll be playing, and there's multiple different stories in multiple different locations. And then it provides, again, I'm going to say multiple one more time. It provides more perspective from several different places around the world, which I think is quite interesting.
Is it going to follow the war in its entirety, or just from a certain point to the end? Or?
So basically, these are stories that take place during the war in various different phases of the war, but it's not going to follow the war in a kind of sequential battle, because it's about the stories that these characters have with each other, not necessarily about save the world story. These are stories about you and I in a tank trying to figure out where to go next, and that's the personal stories, which I think is a little bit more interesting to experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to tell the story of World War I. It was such a complicated war to get like historical.
Absolutely.
Did you guys research that a lot?
Yes, we did, and we don't want to even go close to trying to explain, because I still think historians today argue over exactly what happened in, and if I don't want to jump into that debate, that's for historians to do and not for us as game makers. But we will be using the events that took place as a backdrop, obviously, and the actual events that took place. So I'm going to leave it at that, I think.
Yeah. So what's kind of like been the thing you've been most excited to work on in this project? What's kind of really piqued your interest?
So first of all, I'm excited to work with the team that I'm working with. I always that's the thing that keeps me motivated every day to come into work, to see these amazing people that pull off some pretty amazing stuff, and that we together can work and basically create what you see here today, and the reactions to that we see from it. That is hugely motivating. I have a fantastic team behind me working on this. But if I talk about the game just for a second, what I'm mostly excited about there is there was a moment here the other day where I am playing the game, and I'm as a producer, I only see the problems with the game. But for a minute there, I got completely absorbed by playing the multiplayer. I was in it. That doesn't happen too often for me, and I got this some sort of old 1942 vibes going in there as well, and that was quite the fantastic moment.
Wonderful. Aleks, thank you so much for joining us. When can we be playing Battlefield 1?
So we will be having an open beta later this summer. So if you go to battlefield.com and become an insider, you get to know first when that thing is available. Battlefield 1 will be launching worldwide on October 21st.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, for more coverage of all the biggest and best games from E3 2016, head on over to GameSpot.com.